I want you to take a second and look at these four, and you're going to answer the question, which one doesn't belong? So there are multiple answers. Everyone could be right. Everyone is not really wrong because there are multiple answers. So take a second, think about that. I can't really write on this screen, so we'll just say this is number 1, number 2, 3, 4. And if you have an answer about why you think something doesn't belong, raise your hand, and then we'll go from there. Do we have any thoughts about which one doesn't belong? Nita? Okay, so the second one because it's scattered all over. Anyone else have that same thought? Okay, some of us. So I saw other hands. Jake?
The third one.
Why?
No.
Okay, and the other ones aren't doing that. It's doing this sort of thing. We'll talk about that later, but it's called a quadratic. Did anyone else have that thought? This one is different because of that? Yes, some of us. I want to pronounce it correctly. Mustafa? Did I say that correctly? Okay.
I think it's the third one because it's the only one that doesn't go negative, positive, or neutral.
Okay, so kind of like Jake's, but in a different aspect of it. Okay. Anyone else? What if I said this one didn't belong? Why would it not belong?
Because it's the only one that goes down.
Okay. It's going down like these keep going forward and these are going down. Sure. Yes. What about this one? Why wouldn't this one belong? It's kind of similar reason for this. Because it goes up. It's the only one that's like in a line that kind of goes up. Same thing for this one. That's a good majority of all of the reasons why each of them might not belong. So we're going to do one more. Not that one. Okay. In this, Olivia recorded goal and assist data for her field hockey team. Based on the data, she states that players who score more have fewer assists. Which graph matches Olivia's story and why? So take a second, look at the graphs, think about what that problem is saying. Which graph do we think matches her story? C. Who else thinks it's C for the third one? Okay, why? Why do we think C is the answer? I'm not going to say if it's right or wrong yet. What in C tells you this matches? Jake?
The more scores there are, I guess, assists.
Okay, so if we're saying like this is scores, it keeps going up and scores are going down, it's having some opposite interactions. Anyone else have a different thought? C was the answer for that reason specifically, because one was going up and one was going down. We had to look at something like this. All right, we're going to be talking a lot more about stuff like this here in a bit. Oh, that was fast. I didn't realize that's what she brought up. Let's exit this. Exit, maybe. Okay, ignore that. So, a lot of you that finished got the correct answers. Some things that stood out as I was doing this. For the first one, the boy who lets yellow plays golf. That didn't really mean anything at the beginning. The youngest boy owns a hamster. Okay, so I knew immediately hamster was going to be that one. Because, I skipped some steps. Because it says, it goes in order, oldest to youngest. A lot of this stuff I couldn't really use until I got over here. baseball player is not the oldest, so I know baseball is not 1. Tennis player drinks Coke, that doesn't really help me right now. Basketball player is on the right of the baseball player, so it's younger. He's younger than the baseball player. So it would have to go baseball, basketball. Okay, got it. 7 didn't really mean anything until later, neither did 8. The tennis player likes white. I skipped 3. The tennis player is on the left of the golf player. So if they're on the left, they have to be older. So then I know it has to go tennis, golf, baseball, basketball, and I can fill that in. And then I can start to figure out some other things. Okay, I know the tennis player likes white. I know the tennis player drinks Coke. The oldest boy owns a dog, so whoever number 1 is has to be dog. The boy on the right of the Pepsi drinker likes blue. Doesn't really help because we don't know anything about Pepsi yet. The golfer owns a cat. Well, golf, we know where that is, so cat. Darren drinks Pepsi and does not wear red. Okay, that doesn't really help us right now. We just know he's not wearing red, okay. The hamster does not belong to Jackson, so we know Jackson is not the youngest. The oldest boy does not wear red, okay. Well, we knew that already because he wears white. Jackson is not next to the dog owner. I don't know if we had talked about that yet already. But yeah, so the oldest boy owns a dog. So Jackson is not here. We knew he wasn't the youngest, so he has to be here. And everything kind of else just fell into place. Darren's not the youngest, so he can't be 4. And I think, no. So we knew he had to be 1 or 2. Matt drinks Coke. Okay, so if Matt drinks Coke, he has to be the oldest. And then we know, this is Matt, this is Jackson. We have the sports, we have Coke, we have white, at least, dog, cat, and hamster. Nick doesn't own a parakeet, which it had said something about that earlier on. And then Jackson likes blue, and then everything else filled in.
I remember that.
Yes, you can. Right. If you didn't get that, it's okay. It was really just to see how good are you at logic puzzles. Can you put stuff together? Well, we don't use a lot of logic stuff in Algebra 1. In Geometry, we use a lot of logic stuff, so, excuse me, you'll see more of stuff like that. All right. Okay. If you still have your 2 colorful pieces of paper, take those out. If you need another one, I don't have many of this one, but I can give you another. Also, take out your little half sheet. So if you need these or the little half sheet or both, raise your hand, I'll wait around. So you guys can do this as I do it. Sometimes I might go to something fast, so just tell me to go back or ask me if I can go back. But you should be in Canvas. If you are on someone else's account, like if it was already logged in, you may need to sign out, sign back in. If you would like to just watch later and do it, play with Canvas later, that's also fine. Alright, so when you get in Canvas, you are on the home page. On the home page, there's a lot of important information. Some of the most important, the most recent 5 announcements will be at the top. I have 3, but that you guys will only see 2, this one and this one. I post announcements every day as a this is what you need to do before next class. I'll go into one of those in a moment. So if you're ever not sure, was there homework? Did I miss something? Check that. If you want to get to a unit quickly, use those. These are all, you can play around with each of those. But the important ones are, we'll talk about the accent. You can click directly to that, or I'll show you where it actually leads. The class resources link is that same page most of you joined your class codes from, but this is just a fast way to get there. Your little half sheet. This is your course calendar for the unit. Most of the time, whatever this says is what it's going to be. So whatever it starts, whatever the dates are, usually it'll have test dates, quiz dates, all on that. And that'll be what it is. Notice that there is no quiz test date on this. So keep that in mind. Unit 2 will have that. And unless something unexpected happens, that's usually what they are. Then you can find those dates a couple other places. If you go into course calendars, this is a PDF in that same place. So you can always find that there. If you are in class and just want to know upcoming dates, the board will always have what we're doing every day. If like a quiz or a test is next class, I'll write quiz next class, test next class, whatever. And then I want to make sure that I didn't mix up your name. Yes, Oliver. Okay, Oliver is in here. Okay. Right behind Oliver, there's a bunch of stuff going on. But really at the top, those boards closest to the left are for you guys. At the top where it says practice, and it has 3 things listed, that is where any upcoming Delta Math will be, or homework. Usually it'll have dates, and I just forgot to add that date. But if you look on your course calendar, it says when that date is, which is Friday. You'll have time to work on that later today. So if you're ever wondering, do we have homework? Did I miss a homework? It'll be posted up there until the unit ends. Right, so keep that in mind. And then, on there is also my office hours. It's also posted in the back, but just in case you don't get that information, it's also on there. So if you ever need my help, want to work on Delta Math, practice from the notes, later when we get into testing and retesting, all those things, I'm available in the morning. This will change to 6:50 because I know you guys can't get in until then. On grade A mornings only. And then right now until the activity bus starts, it'll be until 3:30 in the afternoons. Once the activity bus starts, it'll be until 4 p.m. You don't have to stay the whole time, but you're welcome to if you need to. And I'll show you how to schedule that time here in a bit. Questions about the home page? Moving on. Now I'm going to talk about some of the side links. The most important ones are the how to schedule office hours. I'm going to go into this. You can plug it if you would like. There is a video, and I'm going to kind of walk through this video, not actually play it, but you are welcome to watch this video in your own time. The very first time you schedule office hours, if you don't remember what we did in class, watch this video, and it will show you exactly how to schedule office hours. Message Ms. Thorpe it'll go to your inbox and you can message me. It'll go to my email if you need something or want to ask something. And there's a side link to Delta Math. If you don't have that bookmarked or whatever already on your own personal laptops, that's a quick way to get into Delta Math. There are other great ones that we'll use throughout the year, but those are like the main 3 that you need right now. I'm going to go back to my home page just so I can show you the most recent announcement and kind of what that looks like. So if you got this announcement, great. If you're not getting these announcements and you want to get the announcements, you may have to change your notification settings. So it will tell you whatever homework you needed to do before today, if there was any discussions, stuff like that. So make sure you are looking at this. Okay. I'm going to go into modules. And again, there are a bunch of modules, but I'm just going to point out some very important ones. Maybe, as this is thinking. No one asked this in this class, but someone asked in second, and I just thought I'd reiterate the information about the pace of the class. And it will go faster than regular algebra will. Not always, sometimes. More often than not. Right now we're kind of like at the same place, so we're kind of doing the same things. But there will come a time where we're moving a little faster. We have other stuff we have to cover that they're not covering. so it might move a little faster. I will say, if you aren't staying on top of like your notes and assignments, you could easily fall behind. So make sure you are staying on top of those things. If you miss a day, especially stay on top of assignments. I'll show you where videos and stuff are. That way you're not falling behind, because it's really easy to fall behind and now we've moved on and you're still stuck here. Okay. And then also what office hours are for. So please utilize those. Okay. So in the modules, we talked about that there are a bunch. Some important ones are, if you're absent, view the absent module. There's important details about what you should be doing, where you should be going, things like that. As well as, let's say I'm absent, it's an emergency or something. There'll also be instructions there. If something happens and I'm not here, I'll try to post an announcement saying what you need to be doing as well. The How to Study module is really for anybody, any class, not just mine. Mostly math, but there are ways to study there that maybe you didn't really study in middle school because you didn't need to. You will need to study in high school. So that's a good way. It has a bunch of good advice. Use that, read that, whenever. So like this is recording this screen and my voice. And in recorded lessons, anytime you're absent, you can go watch whatever video. So it'll be labeled by unit. And then in each unit, it'll show what class, and then these will be linked to my YouTube page. So whatever we did in class, you can see exactly what we did. The only thing you won't have if you were absent is the notes, the paper copy notes, but you can get them from Canvas. That button on the first page, course calendars, it's not there, which I realized in second. But usually that course calendar, it will be right here. I will do that later today. Flex days we'll talk about later in the year. SOL review module is always open, so even if you want to just see what's in there, start preparing. We don't really start, heavily SOL reviewing until towards the end of the year, but it's always open. You're free to use that. Retakes we'll talk about later in the year. Like what's in there, how to find stuff, things like that. And then in your unit module, there's a lot of things. You probably won't go to everything, and that's okay. Go to what you feel like you need. If it's the vocab, if it's the helpful links, I have stuff to fix this page. The most important things in this are, look at the notes page. It'll have the filled in notes, the blank notes, the video of, not our class video, but of just me doing some of the problems. The discussion from each lesson, make sure you're doing those. If there's just math related to the unit, it'll be there with what the date is. So that's important. And then if there are quizzes and tests, those dates will also be in there. Okay. I just threw so much information at you. What questions do we have about Canvas right now, or anything you need to see or want to see? And you can look through your page if there's something I didn't cover. I'm going to show you one last thing and then we'll be done with Canvas. So the quick walkthrough of office hours. So your Canvas page will look like this. You're going to go into the calendar. So on the iPad, that will be at the bottom. This doesn't really work on an app. You have to be in a browser, Chrome, Safari, Edge. But when you do that, you'll see this button on the side that says Find My Content. And if other teachers are using this, you'll just look for my class and hit Submit. And then once it loads, you may have to scroll down. But then you should be able to see all of my office hours times. And you would just click on one. You can type in what are we meeting about, Delta Math, extra help, whatever, and then hit reserve. And then if you want to change your mind, if you change your mind first, it'll show that you reserved it because it's grayed out. But if you change your mind, you just go back in and hit unreserve. And that's kind of what that video walks you through. Okay. Questions about that? Okay. Switching gears. And the notes we're actually getting into, some of this will be familiar, stuff you talked about last year. Some of it will be new, some of the vocab and things like that. It's okay either way if you have or haven't seen it. So like words like the data cycle, who has heard those words before? The data cycle. Okay. And again, it's okay if you haven't. So as we're taking notes, write down anything that I point out, vocab, stuff like that. If I'm doing a problem, the expectation is you're also doing the problem. If you get it and you want to work ahead, go for it. Unless I say don't move ahead, you're free to move ahead. Anything I say may not be in the whatever, so feel free to write anything that helps. So usually when we talk about a cycle, start somewhere and it continues. In a data cycle, it doesn't really have to start at a specific thing. So like Monday, we didn't really start with this. We started here because we were collecting data. And then on Friday, we're going to be organizing and representing that data and then analyzing it and communicating results and then formulating questions and then kind of repeating that process. So we're going to be coming back to this a lot throughout the year with different things. So there's a lot of writing, so I'm going to be talking, you write as I'm talking. In the data cycle, there are different types of data. One is univariate data. That's a lot of what we did on Monday. Just one set of data, one single characteristic. So like when you all put down your age or when you all put down your number of siblings, just that one piece of data, that's just univariate data. So like if I took the test scores of everyone, that would just be one set of data, or the time spent on their phones, or the GPA of the school. Bivariate data, and that's what we're going to be talking about today as well as on Friday, is it's represented by two variables. We're comparing two different things. So like age and height, hours studied, and grade earned, or whatever you pick to compare on Friday. And there are 4 steps of the data cycle. Now these are numbered 1, 2, 3, 4, but again, it doesn't mean we have to start at 1. But the steps are formulate questions, collect and acquire data, organize and represent data, and analyze data and communicate results. So we do need to know these steps, know the names of these steps. If you can't see from wherever you are, just let me know and we can move you around. I have clipboards too if you need to move closer, back, whatever. Okay. So in step 1 of formulating questions to be explored with the data, we are looking at questions that explore the relationships between the two characteristics or the variables. We're looking for trends in the relationship, but these are like prediction questions. We don't really know. We're just trying to find a question that might fit the data. So while step 1 is just formulating the question, step 2 is where we actually start to collect or acquire the data, and there's more on the back. And this data can be collected in many ways. So we could look into some research. We could do our own research. We could look into surveys. We could do our own surveys. Some other ways we can collect or acquire data just by observing, sitting outside and taking note of what we see, collecting data that way. By doing experiments, so a lot of scientists are collecting a lot of data. By taking polls in the community, at the school, online. Questionnaires are kind of the same as polls, but doing that. Or just acquiring data from a specific source, maybe not Wikipedia, but something that was trusted, proven, stuff like that. And then the next step, organize and represent the data. So we're going to show the data points, usually on a scatter plot. So maybe previously you used bar graphs and pie charts and histograms and stuff like that. We're trying to move kind of away from those and move towards scatter plots. And then we're looking for, is there a pattern in this data? Anyone writing the top part? Okay. Is there a pattern in this data? Later in the year, we're going to be talking about lines of best fit and curves of best fit. And can we use that to draw or to show a trend in this data? And as we start to look at the line or curve of best fit, then we're going to start to make predictions based on that data, based on those trends. And then we're analyzing the data. We're communicating results. Does the data answer our original question that we formulated at the beginning of that cycle? See if there's a correlation or a relationship in the data. And that correlation or relationship can be represented a couple different ways. The relationships can be positive, they can be negative, there can be no relationship or no correlation. Positive correlation, negative correlation. So those are kind of interchangeable. Another way we can look at the data and look at the relationships are they linear? Is this relationship a linear one? Does it make a line? Is it nonlinear? Does it not make a line? Or is it nonlinear and it's quadratic, which we'll talk about later, but that's like a U shape, and we kind of talked about in our warm-up. And then after we figured out all those answers and are analyzing all those different things, we're communicating that relationship in the data, if there is one. And then we're making final predictions based on that data. And sometimes we use those final predictions to then formulate new questions, and then the cycle begins again. And then on the next page is the last page of like official notes, and then we're going to actually do some practice problems. When you finish with that, go ahead and turn it over to the back. And then a lot of what we just talked about was more so just the data cycle stuff. Now we're going to get into actual scatterplot stuff, things we need to know about it. Usually when we take notes, if it's just like one or two words, I'll just fill in those words. But when it's a lot like this, I'll just have it like this so that you can copy. Alright, so when we talk about a scatterplot, one, it needs a title. So like if you saw this in a news article or in a newspaper or somewhere important that it would show this, it would have some title that tells you what is this about. The axes also both need to have a label that tell you or describe to you what exactly these mean. And then the spacing on a scatterplot, the spacing on an axis must be in equal increments. However, the spacing on the x-axis does not have to be the same as the y-axis. So on your graph, you can see that the x-axis, the one on the bottom, is counted by 4s visually. But in between, if I cut that in half, that'd be 2. It's really counted by 2s, but I don't see all those numbers. The y-axis I see is visually counting by 40. But if I were to cut that in half, each grid line is actually by 20s. Once you finish that, shake out your hands, shake out your wrists. You've been writing for a minute. I do that sometimes. My tendonitis comes back in my wrists often. So in this first problem, we're going to construct a scatterplot by plotting these points, and then we're going to describe the relationship and identify gaps, clusters, and outliers. We'll talk about those here in a moment. So we have hours on our phone and test grade. We see those. We see the counting, what those are counted by. So we're going to start with, on the x-axis, at 5. So these are counting individually by 2s, but in between is 1. So 5 would be in between 4 and 6. And then test grade, these are counting individually by 20s. In between would be 10s. So if I go to the right 5 and up to 50, in between, there we go. I'll plot a point on it. And then you can stay with me, or you can go ahead and start plotting the rest of those points, either or. 2 and 95, so I would go over to 2, up to 90, and then 95 would be like halfway in between 90 and 100. And then it gets weird with some of these other numbers. 3 and 82, over to 3, I could go to 80 and do like, not quite to the halfway mark, but somewhere in between there. As long as it's not like closer to 90, you're okay. And then keep plotting the rest of those points. So 7, 44 would be a little less than half. Oh, that's not 7, that's 5. Try again, okay. There we go. 2 and 70. 5 and 50 happens to be the same point, so you don't need to plot it again. 4 and 66 would be a little bit more than half. 1 and 86, again, a little bit more than half. 7 and 90. And 8 and 25. Would be like halfway in between. There we go. Sometimes the board doesn't like when I write on it. So if I were to describe this data, what do you see? What's happening? Descending, like what exactly? Tell me more about that.
Like the more hours, less testing.
Okay. So the more hours that are spent on the phone, the less the test grade is. So decreasing, descending, sure, we would call that a negative relationship. So when we describe it, we want to talk specifically about what are the hours on the phone doing, specifically about what are the tests we're doing, and then their relationship to each other. So I'm going to say the number of hours go up or increase. The test score goes down or decreases. And I don't have a lot of space, so I'm just going to shorthand this. You can also do that if you so choose. My handwriting sometimes is also not the best, so if you don't understand what I wrote, just let me know. So because one is going up and one is going down, anytime that happens, that's a negative correlation or a negative relationship. Okay. So then the other three words, gaps, clusters, and outliers. Gaps would be like, maybe if we had a bunch like right here and right here, there was a significant space missing between it. We don't really have that. These are kind of like evenly spaced out. A cluster would be like if I had a bunch of points like right here. And then an outlier would be something that doesn't really fit in the data. It's kind of out there by itself. It doesn't really match the pattern of the data. Okay. Questions on how to graph the scatter plot or describe it? Try the second one. If you have questions or need my help, let me know. I'll give. Right. If you're finishing up, you can finish that before looking up, or you can just look up to see if there's matched. So your points should have looked something like this. If they're not like exact, like maybe you had this 45 and it was like, I don't know where to put it, it's okay. As long as it's not like way different. If it's similar, you're good. And then describe it. Remember that you're looking for what is the X value doing, what is the fat in grams doing, and what is the calories doing. So because the number of fat grams increase or go up, the number of calories also increase or go up because they're both increasing together. That is a positive correlation. And then this had two clusters, and there was an actual gap also. So that's the one thing it didn't say. Any questions about that scatter plot? We're going to do another one together and then kind of move on to the next thing and then do this a couple more and then I'll give you time to practice on your own. Okay, so we're going to do number one on the back. If you've already done it or started it, that's great. I'm going to go ahead and plot those points. Okay, so age is coming by 20s, but really 10s in between. Miles is going by 2s, but really 1 in between. So 20 and 9. Okay, there we go. Alright, 60 and 4. 35. 30, 35, 7. This board, okay. 40 and 7, 70 and 1.5, so like in between, and kind of right there, 55, so in between 50 and 60, 4, 25, in between, but going to 7.5, so that would be like in the actual middle of that square, of those grid lines, 50 and 5, 30 and 6, and 80 and 1. So yours should look something like that. Okay, so if we were to describe the association between the two variables, what's happening with the age? What's happening with the miles walked?
The more miles, the less the age.
Okay, that is happening. Is it happening in that order? Like, if I'm walking more miles, it's because I'm older? Okay. So, what would the order be in?
The older you get, the less miles you walk.
Yeah, like that. So, And we can also say, as the age increases, the miles walked is decreasing. So any variation of that would be fine. And again, I'm just shorthanding this bit. What type of relationship would that be?
Negative.
Negative, good. This one didn't really have any outliers, gaps. You could kind of call this a cluster, but not really. So we analyzed the data. We collected some data, we represented it, we analyzed it, and now we're going to make some predictions to formulate some questions. Based on the scatterplot, predict the number of miles a 13-year-old student would walk. So if I was 13 over here, about how many miles would I walk?
10.
10. And how do you get that number?
Because it's like, it's the next one up from, it used to increase, the next logical thing is 10.
Okay. Did anyone else have a different answer? And were you going to say something?
Just 9.
Okay. I feel like 9 might be okay, but 9 is also at 20, so is a 20-year-old and a 13-year-old, are they walking the same amount of miles? Maybe, I don't know. But 9 could possibly work. 10 would be like probably a better answer. Someone in second period said 9.77, whatever, as long as it's close. So we could say like 10. And when we're writing these answers, we need to have labels behind them. So this is the amount of miles, so 10 miles. What about an 85-year-old man? Go ahead. Half a mile, yeah. And how do you figure that out?
Because the 80-year-old person walks like 1 mile.
Right. So like 85, maybe somewhere there. And then what would be like an outlier? What could be an outlier if we were to make up some data? Karina?
40-year-old walks 8 miles.
You said how?
40.
40-year-old walking.
8 miles.
That's like, it's so close to the data, I can't really call it an outlier, but if I was at 10, maybe. What's another one?
100-year-old walking 10 miles.
Yeah, that's crazy. They're really fit for their age. So a 100-year-old walking 10 miles, that would definitely be an outlier. Any others? Because we can go the opposite way too. Jade?
A 0-year-old walking.
Okay. Well, yeah, one, they can't walk, so that would be weird. But also, anything in here walking just a small amount, maybe something happened to them. Maybe they can't walk. So then you have to think about realistic whys behind those. Okay? Alright. We'll do this quickly and then move on. So go to this page. We're just going to do a couple of these. I think we got this one pretty down packed. So let's start at number 2. How would I describe this? And I'm also going to give you a couple other ways to describe them as well.
Positive.
This one is positive. Other types of relationships, is it making a line? Does it not make a line? Does it look like a U? What does it do?
Cluster.
It makes a line. There are some clusters. So I would call this a positive linear correlation because it's making that line. And there is this cluster like right here. What about, the other word. So you might also see words to describe the correlation as weak or strong. So like if they're really bunched together or if they like almost form that line, they're pretty strong. So I can say, these are pretty strong. They're really, really close together. And later we'll define those even more. But like one, they're kind of spaced out. They're making the line, but very spaced out. There's not enough data to really say this is strong data, so that would be like more weak. What about number 3? How would I describe that? So not quite a quadratic. It's actually called an exponential function. We'll talk about that later also. But because it's that means it's not linear. And nonlinear things, we're just dealing with nonlinear. So we wouldn't even put like positive, negative, all those things to it. We would just say it's nonlinear. Sleep out time. There was one question that I wanted you to answer on one of these. I'll kind of talk through this really fast. So, on the next page, when you're asked questions like this, what information is shown? That information you should be able to find directly from the scatter plot. Hours on the phone, test score, that's what those labels are for. But how would I find P? How many students were surveyed? How could I figure that out? Based on the graph, based on the scatter plot. Green. Counting the dots. So quickly do that. Count how many dots are right here. How many?
16.
16. And 16 what, since we're labeling?
Students.
Yes, students. Okay, I'm going to skip C. You're welcome to go back and do these in a moment. D, there's an outlier. What is the number of hours on the phone and the test score at that outlier? Go ahead, Ariana.
9 hours.
9 hours. And what's the test score? 90. How could they have been on their phone for 9 hours and still scored a 90? Jake? They may have cheated. It's a possibility. Or what?
The survey's wrong.
Possibly, maybe, but okay. Or that maybe instead of being on TikTok and Facebook and Snapchat, they were actually studying on their phone. Okay. Is there any other way that outlier might make sense? Okay.
It's really good at guessing.
Okay, or that. Or maybe they're just really good. Maybe they didn't need to study and could be on their phone. There are different ways to this. But thinking about those whys, those are great things to be doing. Okay? So, up until about 2:05, because that's when I'll have you like put not laptops, iPads, and grab your phones and stuff. You could be working on one of two things. At like 55, I'm going to have you do this discussion really fast, but for the next like 10 or so minutes, you can either start working on the Delta Math that is due on Friday on your iPads, that I'll unlock in 2 seconds, or you can keep working in the notes packet. The notes packet is not due. The Delta Math is due, and it is formative. To me, it will affect your grade if you do not do it, but you can keep doing it until you get the grade you want. You can work together, you can move around. So you can be working on either of those. If you did not join the class codes, you need to now do that before you can do the Delta Math.